Dead. St. Helens, it's Halloween Eve right here, right now. I couldn't think of a better time or better place to be to do this kind of stuff. Those of you guys that don't know about St. Helens, this is the iconic Halloween town. I know there's a lot of history here. These buildings have probably seen a lot. I'm sure this goes in with if the walls could talk, right? A lot of things going on here. So lots of history. This is a great place to be right now. So what we're going to talk about right now is going to be something that's going to be a little different, but this is something that I really enjoy. This is something I'm very passionate about, and I think we have an incredible ability to do some things that we have no idea. And so what we're going to go is we're going to approach this new angle and this new topic with love and understanding, and understand that some of the views that I'm going to say right now, it's going to probably conflicting with some already established views that are out there. What I offer is a perspective of working in the field. I read books, I read how to do stuff, but more importantly, I like to figure things out. One of the things that I also am, I'm a football coach and I'm a wrestling coach. And so one of the things I've always enjoyed was figuring out angles and how to defeat my opponent. And once I learned that the whole part of needing to defeat something was really getting in the way, I replaced it with wanting to guide and help and heal. And there's a lot of things that are out there that are pretty frightening to people. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about this. And we're going to talk about some of the other kind of spiritual phenomena that's out there, what lingers in the shadow. How do they get there? What forms that kind of stuff? But more importantly, what can we do about it? You know, we have people in the crowd right now, and those of us that are at home probably have people here that have had certain encounters or certain things pop up that has left them wondering what's going on. And for a lot of people, if we don't understand it, we don't necessarily run towards it. We kind of turn the cheek and we're like, it is what it is, but that is it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things over the years that people have done to try and promote communication with the other side. Really old habits, or I want to say habits, but really old methods. How many have ever heard of a Ouija board before? Okay, that's a very common way that people have stepped into this before. How many of you guys have ever heard of scrying? For those of you that are unsure about what scrying is, you guys ever heard the gypsy psychic that can look into the crystal ball and see your future? That is scrying, looking into the crystal ball. There's people that look into mirrors, or I've even heard of a black mirror, looking into a black mirror. People like Nostradamus and some of these other people that were like prophets. They would be able to look into the stuff and get prophecy, talk about the future and this kind of stuff. So what we can do with this insight is something truly amazing, because if we can really develop clarity with our own insight, then it starts opening up other things like clairvoyance, claircognizance, your empathy skills, your empathic abilities very much raised, where we start seeing things differently and more clearly. If I can paint a picture for you, if someone was like, hey, how do you become clairvoyant? How do you see stuff like that? What do you do? How do you do that? I try and tell people, once again, let's talk about water. If I was to walk up to a steady pond or a puddle or whatever, right, I could lean over the top of it. I can see my reflection in it. I can see what color shirt I'm wearing, the necklace I have, the haircut I have, right? Now, if I take a rock and I throw it in that water, it's going to create ripples, right? Then when I look at myself, I can kind of see what color shirt I have on, but it's really distorted, and I have a hard time making that clear image, right? So inner vision is a lot like that puddle. Emotional outbursts are the rocks that we throw in it. So what we have to learn first is establishing what is us and what is emotion. What is emotion trying to tell us? Is it a reaction, or is it something that's more there? So what else is there making us feel this emotion right now, okay? What's making us get angry easy? What's making us get frustrated easy? Why am I not sleeping good at night? How come I'm always awake and I have every idea that's gonna solve my life's problems at 3 a.m? You know what I mean? We've been there, right? So some of that stuff is us, but really a lot of it is what we're feeling around. We have a physical body. It's like an antenna. It's a transmitter and it's a receiver. We can do some neat stuff with it, but we can also pick up on things that are around us. How many of you guys ever had that where you walk into a house or you walk into a room and you don't even know what just happened there, right? But you walk in and you can feel the tension. You can cut it with a knife, right? You can tell maybe there was just a really bad argument or something, right? And we walk in and I don't know what the hell happened here. You know what I mean? We can feel that, okay? So this is gonna bring up the first topic of what we're gonna talk about, poltergeists. Poltergeist energy. How many of you guys ever heard about poltergeist energy? Okay, it's a good one to understand because it's completely different than anything else out there. So poltergeist energy, for lack of a better term, there's a couple different ways that it can be created. First one, projection of consciousness. How many of you have ever heard of teenagers being really, really good at creating poltergeists? When you're struggling to find yourself, or you're trying to find yourself, or you say, hey, this is the person I want to be, this is what I want to do, I'm going to work every day to accomplish this. We set our intention in those directions. Some people are really, really good at projecting consciousness and don't know it. Just like some people are good at math, some people got great handwriting, some people can lift heavy weights and run really fast. Some people can project consciousness really well. So this energy that accumulates in a house, let's say there was a household that had a lot of violence in it, a lot of drugs in it. Let's say a lot of just dysfunction, anything you could think of in that area, that's what happened in this house, right? Those people moved out, they cleaned the house, they put fresh paint on the walls. It looks good when you walk in, new carpets, new paint, we all happy, right? That family that moves in has a little girl that maybe has already endured being in the presence of an abusive male. Okay, I'm telling you this because I'm helping you paint a picture. Poltergeist energy is consciousness that is projected, but most of the time what's projected is what we don't have or what we don't want or that kind of stuff. I want to be liked and popular because on the inside I don't feel like I'm popular. I want to be pretty because on the inside I feel ugly, right? It's a projection of this stuff. So over time, if we don't cleanse our space, we don't do the stuff, sometimes people use sage, bells, chimes, singing bowls, lots of different ways you can do it, right? But if it doesn't happen and this energy accumulates over time, what it turns into is almost like an etheric clay that can be molded, which is molded based off of our traumas and fears. It does not show up like sunshine and rainbows. It's not that way at all, okay? So getting back to this little girl, she had already felt the abuse of a male. She's terrified to wake up and see a male figure standing in her doorway. It is not too long where that child that's gifted, that's projecting consciousness, all of a sudden that thing starts taking shape and it becomes something that looks like a male standing in the doorway. It's a response. So poltergeist energy can also be something that we create on ourselves. This usually comes from trauma. This usually comes from a really, really rough situation in life. Maybe you had to really find out who your friends were, realize that, hey, these people really aren't my friends, whatever, right? We stew, we get upset about life, we sit there and we hold on to it, and it creates, it's like a barrier. It's like a deflection that really will deflect anything. Someone trying to send you healing energy, it'll repel it. It's really strong. And most of the time when you find people that have like really bad, like self-sabotaging behaviors and thoughts where you get all ready and you don't want to leave the house, or people invite you to this, but you only want to be invited to it, but you don't actually want to go to it, even though you realize if you go to it, it's going to be a lot of fun and people are going to tell you they love you, and it is what it is. These things hop in the way of us all the time for feeling our happiness, okay? And so we create these poltergeist energies that are on us, and this will take a little bit of our habits, our dislikes, the things that we're scared of, the things that make us angry. And then let's say something happens to that person. That can detach and remain in someone's house. And let me tell you that over time, if this happens and people move in and move out and move in and move out, 10 different families live in this house and this thing's never been cleared, all of a sudden it starts holding on to trace aspects of people. Maybe part of the house where they got in a fight, they make noise over there. But more importantly, some of the things that we hear about these really, really advanced cases is hearing people, you guys ever heard where someone's like, I was in this house and I swear I heard my kids call my name and I went into their room and they were sound asleep. Or I swear I heard someone whistling. This kind of stuff, right? This is more advanced cases, okay? Because they take patterns of people and they kind of assimilate with it. And over time, they almost kind of turn into their own entity. Most don't ever make it to this point. Most usually just kind of reside as a thick, uneasy feeling. It takes time for this stuff to, manifest. So what this is gonna do, we're gonna talk about something else. You get one of these in the house, it's from intense environment, from intense suffering, intense anger. It sits at a vibration, sits at a certain resonance, and that resonance pulls in other stuff that is similar. So the next thing we're gonna talk about, this is one that a lot of people really get fearful about this, and I just want you guys to know that we're loved and we're protected right now. You guys are in a safe environment and we can talk about this stuff okay. And no matter what happens, even if you got one of these at home right now, I'm gonna bring it to me and you're not gonna have it at home anymore, okay? That's one of the main reasons I have in this series, because I wanna be able to help you guys, okay? So we gotta demystify the shadow a little bit. How many of you guys have ever heard of a red-eyed shadow person? How many of you guys ever heard of the Hat Man? Anybody ever heard of the term jinn? They're all the same. Some people will call these the deceivers because they are very different than us, and I will tell you they're absolutely real. They come from a very different reality than us. They are non-physical. They don't have a body. They're not quite electricity, but I mean, it's really hard to like put words in something that's hard to describe, right? But I would say that they're similar to electricity when it comes to their energy body, because they have the ability to manipulate our electronics. Guys ever had your smoke alarms go off in the middle of the night? Keep changing that battery just to find it keep shorting out a week later. The Duracell's supposed to last, but it don't. Guys ever had it where you have a lot of nightmares? Where all of a sudden you're seeing things that are really disturbing, and then you wake up feeling off and you're just kind of like, ew, and feel yucky. Even if you shower, you still feel kind of gross from seeing that stuff, okay? These things understand when we come in contact with them, they are also stuck. They are in a position where they can't leave, and so they have learned to survive, essentially by any means necessary. Now, a non-physical being, how does a non-physical being survive? Because we associate our being alive with drinking water and eating food, right? But if they're never thirsty and they're never hungry and they're never asleep, how can we help them, right? So these things are absolutely attracted to poltergeist energies. Big, thick ones in the home, these will come to it because it's like a food source. It's a very viable thing that it can be around and it can gain sustenance off of it. Before we think about it being something really bad, I want to talk about like a mosquito real quick. And it's kind of a poor analogy because I don't want you to think that they're like a parasite, and I don't want you to think that they're just a meager little mosquito, because they're very powerful and they're to be respected, but you don't need to fear them. So a mosquito goes from one person to another, drinks a little bit of blood, gets its fill, and finds another person. Is that mosquito evil? Or is that just the way that it understands how to survive? Okay, so these things don't understand what's capable, and most of them, they have fallen so far from the light, they think that it's separate from them, and that because we can't send them to the light, that's not where they're from, they think that they are outside of it, and we can gift it to them and really, really help them with this, okay? So what I want to do is I'm just going to ask you guys real quick, anybody ever have an encounter at home, see something, hear something? Maybe it was a house it was a friend's house. Maybe it was a house you lived in when you were younger. Maybe it was someone that you visited right now. I want you to think about that house real quick. I can see the woman in the kitchen. I can see the big man in the hallway. Yep. I can hear the one making noise downstairs. I can see the cloud that sits over in the corner of the room that dog constantly reaches up and barks at. Okay? At this point, I'm gonna bring them all here with me now. Now I want you guys to feel something. Because I'm first, one of these is a jinn, okay? And when I approach these, I need you to understand that I see them as like a brother. We all kind of like share space. The only thing that's different is they can kind of phase in and out of our reality when we just feel stuck here. But when we dream, we obviously go other places. And that's where they interact with us, is on the mind state and in the dreams. This is something, you can put all the crystals in your house you want. You can put up all the crosses. You can put holy water on the windows, sage every single day. And all you have to do is be someone that travels when you sleep. You pull them right to you every single time. This is the way they work. They can teleport from one place to another. They have an ability of like throwing stuff around the house when they're not being heard. These things are the type of stuff that really make people feel off right now. So the reason why I'm saying this is because I want you to feel what I'm feeling right now. Does anybody feel that little twitter in their chest right now, little lightness? Okay. Sometimes it's here. Sometimes it's here. We get sharp pain. Just, ooh, what's that quick, right? Those fiber optic cables are pushed out there. We're feeling this stuff, right? So when these things come around, they have a distinct feeling to them. And that feeling usually comes off as anxiety. These are the things that if they stick around long enough, these are what we call polarity flippers. These things can make a really nice person really angry. They can make a really smart, intelligent person crazy. They can take someone that's been a male their whole life and decide at the age of 55 they are now a woman named Mary. They are polarity flippers. And all I'm saying, I don't care if you identify as an M&M or a Skittle or an M&M inside of a Skittles bag. Like, that part doesn't matter to me. But what does matter to me is that if you're gonna make your decision clearly, make sure you yourself are clear first and that your home is clear, then you can make whatever decision you want clearly. But just know that the root of what we're doing today is to help us understand how to make those decisions clear. So we now have them here. We feel this pressure. This is them in our presence, okay? Sometimes I have to be able to put like operating hours on what I'm doing, right? I'll feel, okay, I see you there. I feel that you're there, but hey, look, I'm exhausted. It's been a long day. Please be respectful while you're here. When I wake up in the morning and get my cup of coffee, I'll help you out then. I promise you have my word, okay? And that usually makes them step back. But believe me when I tell you, if I get my cup of coffee in the morning and I sit down and I start messing with my phone and not own up to what I'm saying, right next to me, oh, by the way, sir, you said you'd help me, so I'm here right now. They very much want your attention and they are very impatient. So just understand that where they're at is not real fun. Where we're at's different. You hear people talk about hell being this place full of fire and brimstone and stuff. And I can't say that I've been there. I think I've been to hell a few times. And I can tell you it is not hot. It's dark, it's cold, it's windy. And it's like someone threw you in a pool and you had to walk home with one shoe for 5 miles while it's windy. It's not real fun. And that's not even talking about the emotion that you're feeling. But I'm painting this picture for you because when someone like you comes along, you're warm, you're radiant, you're light. And the only thing that they know is if they get close to you, their pain goes away. That's the only thing they know. You look like someone that can help them, but really they get close to you and it makes the pain go away. So the jinn are something that is a non-human entity. They do not have that Christ spark. They do not have that water drop that we talked about earlier. But they are like etheric energy. They are mental energy. They are astral energy. We have those aspects about us that allow us to connect with them. So we can heal them and get them to go where they need to go, just like we can any other person that's on here. And I'll be honest with you, if you have one of these in your house, we clear this thing, chances are your family members are gonna start coming forward because these things are blockers too. They will totally block a lot of stuff from moving out of your house because they need the help too, okay? So this is the first layer of when it comes down to spiritual attachments, okay? When we talk about the poltergeist and a non-human entity being attached to it, okay? That's the first layer. We haven't even talked about people yet. So if you guys are comfortable, I can move on to the next one. If you guys have any questions about anything like gen-related, non-human related, go ahead.
I have a question. Actually, it's so I often am attracted to individuals who struggle with that particular energy type, and so I'm meeting them all of the time. They're coming into my experience, and then I seem to pick up that jinn energy. And I know I've worked with you a couple of times to clear it. And so, what do you think would be, other than just being an attractant to them, being a person who works with energy, something that either I could do differently, or any advice on why they're constantly flowing into my experience?
Well, It's a really good question. For those of you guys that didn't hear the question, we have someone that's basically attracts the jinn a lot with a lot of the stuff that she's doing and wants to know, is there something that she can do to help deter it, slow it down, manage it, just wants to know a little bit more about that. So my first question is, are you an energy practitioner? Are you someone that is interested in helping and healing? You signed up for it. So same with me, and believe me when I tell you that if you help them, they know about it. And all of a sudden, like you, I start finding them come out of the woodwork, because I'm also like a tattoo artist too, same as Dana. So most of the time I'm with people and I'm in their space, I take everything that comes in with them too, which sometimes nowadays seems to be that more often than not. If I have 10 appointments, probably 8 of them have a jinn at home. And I don't think that it's any coincidence. And I think for some reason, these people are guided to coming in, and I'm just like, okay, hey, it's cool. I'll help clear you. Hey, I'll help clear you. You know, like I try and do, like being on video and talking to you guys about it is different than what I usually do. I like doing this stuff kind of backdoor approach. For me, I don't want to be the person that walks in the house and look at me almighty and I'm going to get this thing out and I'll get anything. You know, like that's not it. That's not it. What I like to be is that person that in my mind goes in through the doggy door at 3 o'clock in the morning and throws a big net through your whole house and pulls everything to me and go, oh, that's where you were. It's not really like a net. It's more like sonar. See the ripple and it gets their attention and they come back. So for me, that's what I like to do. It's more like, I like to be not in the forefront doing it. I like doing it, you know, through the back, I guess you could say, kind of undetected. That's the way I like to do it the most. But either way, not all methods are meant to be that way. Some methods are meant to be in person, and I think it's really good because anytime there is an in-person method, then there's usually some really interesting things that come up out of it. Family member that has something to share or something important that's revealed. There's always something that comes with it, okay? So we talked a little bit about the gym, we talked a little about poltergeist. Let's talk about people, okay? People, when they pass away, for lots of different ways, we can remain earthbound. Some have no idea that they passed away. Some do. And they're just waiting to see their family member and their friends kind of do their part, and they all kind of leave and go together. And some don't want to go. Some, like I said, if there was like a parent that like died in a car accident and they had a little kid, they're going to be the ones that want to stick around. They're going to be the ones that are going to have a hard time telling leave. And there's ways around that, and we'll talk about that. There's that. Like I said, there's people that maybe were really religious and did something or didn't do something when they were little, and they've held on to guilt. I had a guy that I helped out. He was banging cupboards at night in the house, slamming cupboards. This lady's father that passed away. And when I got a chance to sit down and connect, he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go. And I was really curious on what happened. And all of a sudden I see this, like, I get kind of like a vision, right? And where is that vision? It comes in with like memory. If I said, hey, remember when we were over at this place and this person showed up and then this happened? You'd be like, yeah, I can remember that. So that place is where I see it in that memory. It's almost like a memory. And I see the dock and I see the water and I see the splashing, and I look at his wife and I go, what happened with the dock, with the water? And she was like, so long story short, this guy watched his best friend drown to death. He could have jumped in and helped him, and he was paralyzed in fear. And he paralyzed and he watched his best friend drown in front of him, and he held on to that his entire life. And he thought because of that, he wasn't gonna be gifted the ability to be with his family and friends. You know what I mean? Like just something as simple as that. When he was like 11 or 12 years old, he was a boy, right? But still held on to that. So believe me, people hold on to that stuff after the grave. They absolutely do. So there's a lot of different ways people are earthbound. If this kind of topic interests you, there's a good book out there. It's called Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. That's a real good one. Kind of talks about what happens after death and before birth. It's a real good book that's out there for that. So if you guys are interested in the topic, it's a real good one. So earthbound humans. Earthbound humans have a Christ spark. They have something inside of them, which is also inside of us. And because of that, we put them in different locations. Anytime we're dealing with like just a poltergeist energy by itself, it's projected consciousness. So it comes from the mind. All your thoughts come from what we could just call the universal mind, if you want. That's where our thoughts come from, right? So this is where we can do our healing and help send back to the universal mind. Jinn, on the other hand, they're not a concept of the mind. They are actual consciousness. They are made of the creator, but different than us. And so because of that, they reside in a different dimension. And for me, that's just kind of the easiest way to remember it. So when we get those clear up, we heal them. We need to call on a being of light or some sort of guardian angel or some sort of spirit guide. We all have them. All you have to do is just invite them to come in. And whatever relationship you develop with them is completely your business. But what I'm saying is they won't jump in unless we ask them. So ask them to help. They are the ones that can help guide them back to where they need to go. I can ask for it to happen, but I cannot physically do that. And not only that, they have to agree. And so the process that I'm gonna show you later is a way of directing the conversation. Doing this work, we have to direct the conversation. Most of the time people wanna know, what's your name? When were you born? How did you die? Did you have a family? And right now, they died of a really, really strong sickness and they're in kind of an incoherent state. And right now, that's probably a lot for them to answer. If we do the healing on them and then ask them those questions, you get a lot clearer answers and they operate from a much greater capacity. So human entities can attach onto other humans. This is what gives rise to hereditary family illnesses. How many of you guys ever heard about cancers or tumors that reside in families? Yeah, it's a big one, okay? So once again, when we're talking about, like in that first talk, how we can remove tumors and stuff, but if we don't do anything about the seed, if we don't do anything about the root and energy that's within the person's energy field, then it's just gonna manifest in another way. So if this makes sense, let's say you had one of your grandparents, let's say they passed away of some sort of cancer, right? We'll say lung cancer. They passed away of lung cancer, they were a smoker, okay? We grieve for them, we love them, we miss them. One of these nights we're lonely and we think about them. And the first thing they want to do, because when you're in spirit, when someone thinks about you, you can jump right in with them. You can show up, it's like being pulled somewhere. It's super instant. Imagine instead of having to fly to a beach, all you had to do is think about your favorite beach and then you're standing in the middle of it. Like that's how it works with your spirit. You can move very quickly. And so when we think about them, we bring them to us. Now, let's say they're sitting there and usually they want to help us, they want to comfort us, and that's the first thing they want to usually do is come up and like give us a hug or, you know, comfort us. Sometimes we feel that warmth on our back, like it's all very good. But when we're really sad, when we're really angry, this is engaged the whole time. How many of you ever drove by someplace that something bad happened and every time you go by, you feel yourself get tighter? Or you think about that conversation where you wish you would have said this when they said that and you just feel yourself, you get all tight, you gotta breathe and let that stuff go. So when we're constantly engaged in that, okay, it keeps them attached to us. That kind of stuff, vibrationally similar, it attaches to us. So energy attaches to energy, and then the signature of the sickness starts coming into the energy bodies of the person that's alive, and it manifests in the physical sickness in the human body. This happens a lot with cancers and tumors. So we had a gentleman ask earlier about how family trauma can be handed up. This is one of the instances that we do where we hand up healing through the family, because sometimes this comes down to more than one family member. Okay, so what we'll talk about next is what's called a collective, is what I call them, or you can call them trap souls if you want, but for me, I just call it a collective. And basically, there's 3 different ways a collective can be created. One is suicide, one is overdoses, and the other one's cancer. And all of these can transfer to other people. How many times have we ever heard that story about that student, super popular, super liked, really smart, had a lot of stuff going for them, and then they overdosed because they hung themselves, or they overdosed because they took the pills or whatever, right? That fentanyl stuff that's rolling around too. Some of it's not intentional. When this happens, let's say you were in the state of wanting to take your own life, just to find yourself still feeling your pain, still feeling your sadness, and now on top of that, you get to witness the sadness from all of your family around you. You're stuck in that position, right? So what happens is your family grieves for you and they get close to somebody, or maybe they move out of that house and a new family moves in with another kid that has a similar kind of complex, feeling alone, feeling lost, feeling betrayed, whatever, right? It's a similar complex. Next thing you know, they start sharing space. It starts affecting their dreams, it starts affecting their mood, and the next thing you know, it starts affecting their ability to process things in a positive way. They become recluses, and I'm not just talking about like teenagers wanting to like be in a room. That's pretty normal, you know what I mean? But people really pull back. Maybe they get a certain fascination with like really dark stuff. I don't know. It could be a lot of different things. But what I'm saying is this person that killed himself intentionally now still feels very, very alive because they're looking, they can see their hands, they can feel their body because they're attached to somebody. They try and kill themselves again, which usually takes the life of the next person. And now they're together. So most collectives that I come into, a minimal of 2, but I've seen them up around most of like 7 or 9. I find a lot of them in hospitals. Me personally, I'm not like knocking on Western medicine, but those places I have to do my work before I go there and after I leave. Like I'll just kind of witness myself going on the floor where it's at, and I just start pulling. I just grab everything that's on the wing, on the floor, on the nurses, on the doctors, on the patients, and just start pulling all of it off and then doing a clearing on it before I even walk in. Because if I don't, I'll get 1 or 2 and 2 in the morning going, hey, you awake? Okay? So it is what it is, and you can embrace it or you can run from it. But one thing is true, it was always constant in my life. And so this is something I try and show you guys, that I'm empowering you to do something about this stuff, okay? So collective entities can be connected to at the same time. Humans, we have what's called a higher self. That piece of our soul is attached to something much bigger. That piece of our soul is what allows us to astral travel. You guys ever heard of astral travel or astral projection? That kind of stuff, okay? This gives us that ability. So what that means is what we're a part of is much bigger than what can fit inside here. If we tried to put the soul inside of a human body, imagine trying to put a jet engine inside of a Matchbox car. It is not gonna work. It's way too big, right? So same kind of thing. But the cool thing about that is that part of us that's already on the other side, it's already with source, it's already there. It has our back and we can connect with it with guidance. But the cool thing is since humans all have a higher self, we can use our higher self to connect with theirs, which brings the healing down into the disincarnated. So when I connect with ghosts, I'm not just connecting with them. I'm connecting to something that's trying to show me more than just what they're feeling. It's more like the all-knowing. So that is how the connection is made with people, is we connect through the higher self. And then when we do our healing, we send it through the Christ spark. How many of you have ever seen the movie Moana before? I love that movie. But when I first saw that movie, and at the very end, you got Tikal, who's this, lava throwing demon that comes out and destroys stuff. And then you got Nefertiti, who's the nature goddess that makes everything grow and bloom, and she's wonderful and beautiful. Then you get Maui, who took the heart from Nefertiti, right? Damaged her, he hurt her, scorned her. And all of a sudden, Tikal became a pain in the butt. At the end of the movie, they finally get to where they need to go. And old Moana, trusting and faithful and full of love, followed her purpose. And she said, that's all right. Bring it to me. And the sea parted. And that thing came running up, looking all scary still, right? Just to get face to face with it and go, it's okay. I know who you are. You know who you are. This is not who you are. You know what I mean? And they were like, oh. And she put that stone right in the middle of the chest. She turned right back into Nefertiti. I about fell out of my damn chair. And I said, they're giving everybody the lowdown on how this stuff works. I'm like, am I seeing this? Am I the only one seeing this right now? You know what I mean? That is healing a demon 101. 100%. And let me tell you, humans can absolutely be demonic. Absolutely. But this is what we'll talk about next. And we talk about unfolding, when we talk about attachments. How we talked about earlier, how a poltergeist can have a jinn attached to it. People can have jinn attached to them. People can have other people attached to them. And if you don't learn to get to the clearing back to what's attached to them, the clearing will not work. There will always be something blocking it. Jinn?
Say that again.
I said, if we don't get to the root, if we don't get to what's behind everything else and clear that, then it'll block everything. So if you're running into it, we're like, hey, I tried clearing this one and it won't clear. I tried clearing this one, it won't clear. Say, hey, anybody else there with you and you're upset I'm talking to you? That usually is that. Actually, there is someone here that's mad right now that you're not talking to them. All right, cool, bring them forward. And that's when I start doing the healing again. This is where you'll find your jinn. This is where you'll find suicides, because sometimes they think if you find them, you're going to punish them, or that you're going to do something bad. Anybody that's into any kind of like folk magic has probably heard about like binding, and some of these other things, banishing and stuff, and just people can have their own opinions. Understand my direction is guided by love, and I think binding things and banishing things isn't quite right. Like imagine if you had someone that was in a hospital bleeding to death or just in a really, really bad state, right? And you said, okay, hold on a second, I got you. And you take their chair and you wheel them out to the middle of the highway and you say, all right, go ahead and get better out here. That's what we do when we just sage a house. That's what we do when we bind something. We put it off for somebody else. How many of you guys have ever heard about people putting stuff in crystals? Personally, that is not a practice that I preach. I know some people that do it. Fundamentally, I won't. Because what usually happens is there's a very old method. If you have something in your house, you can take what's in your house and trap it into a crystal, and then they'll take it outside and bury it, thinking that, oh, it's an elemental being, so we're gonna put it in the earth and it's gonna clear it just right. Well, what usually happens is that cute little girl that goes walking down the path with her dog's like, oh, look at this, wow, look at this crystal that's out here. This is amazing, what a lucky find, someone loves me. And then they bring it home and all of a sudden things start going off at home because they have now brought something into their house. So I love crystals. If you guys ever come into my tattoo shop or come into my room, you're gonna see I have a lot. But just understand, crystals can also come with things. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is we can bring stuff in our home with good intention and really bring something that needs our attention. So these things come to us for a certain way. I've done a lot of clearings on myself, my house, and other people's houses. And there's something that I don't even know how many I've done, but we'll just say hundreds, okay? Out of all the hundreds and stuff that I've done, there's a common denominator here. What's inside their house vibrationally has something we share. There's always something, there's a connecting factor. And I tell people, what's the factor? How come I keep attracting ghosts? How come every time I clear, they always come back or more come back? How come? Well, what's inside that we have in common? What's inside that we're not working on that we know we should? Because I guarantee you, if you're able to dive in with the pendulum and fine tune your intuition and start talking and asking those questions, you would find there's a similarity. So like for me, with my family, I noticed in the males, there was patterns of anger, a lot of anger, hardworking, dedicated men, but there was definitely maybe some unhealthy ways that we process life, okay? It would be no surprise that when I first started getting into this, do you think I attracted the happy ones? They're already pretty pissed off. But if we get the opportunity to help them, we can change their demeanor and we can absolutely help them, okay? So we've talked about collectives, we've talked about people, we've talked about poltergeists, we've talked about the jinn. There's still something we haven't talked about yet. How many of you guys have ever heard of a succubus or incubus energy before? You know, I talked to some of my friends overseas and the first thing they think is I'm like a Christian that has a certain Western view on things that make this stuff possible. I'm like, dude, I have no idea about nothing. All I know is that this is here and this is what's going on. Do the work, tell me what you think. That's the only thing I know is I don't know nothing. But here's what I found. So succubus, incubus energy are these type of things that when we have dreams, they can give us like sensations of like intimacy. We can feel this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's not bad, but most of the time it's not really good. They can impersonate people that we know. They can look like somebody, having intimate moments with us that we do not want to have those moments with. They can start off as someone who looks that way and all of a sudden turns into something different. I find these attached with people that really spend a lot of time in nightlife. I used to be a bouncer for a few years. I attended downtown Portland, the Shanghai tunnels, everything down there. I was about that for about 7 or 8 years, and I can tell you there's definitely some stuff going on down there. But these are very prevalent in that entire area. So some of these people that, like I said, it doesn't matter what you're into in life, but let's just say you're in an open relationship and you're going to places celebrating that with other people that have the same views. There's places for that kind of stuff, right? These are very prevalent in those places too. So reason why these things are, because they're kind of like that mosquito. They only kind of know how to survive a certain way, right? And this is an energy that comes off of when we actually see them. They come off as a very, very small shadow. Sometimes we can feel them like on our chest, but these also induce sleep paralysis. How many of you ever had sleep paralysis before? I've heard about it before. Okay, so I'll give you a little story. Being a tattoo artist, there was a gal I was tattooing, and right off the bat, I just knew something was off, but I wanted to focus on the tattoo and I'd handle that later. You know what I mean? I had a busy day, I was gonna handle it later. Well, I remember going to bed that night, and now mind you, I wake up, at least in my dream, I woke up, and I can hear my wife sleeping next to me. I can hear her, I can feel her sleeping next to me, and I look to the side of my bed, and mind you, I'm in my dream, and I see a naked woman standing in front of me, but she had her back turned to me. I could see her hair, her shoulders, her butt, the back of her legs. I could see all of it. I'm going, and I'm looking at my wife sleeping here, and I'm looking at this other naked person. I'm going, what the heck is going on here, right? So I had the awareness in my dream to reach over on my nightstand, unlock my phone, open up the camera, and I took a photo. And I'm looking at this woman, and this is in my dream, and I look at my phone, and I see black smoke, like this. And I said, huh, and all of a sudden I feel on my bed, it starts sitting in my bed. I said, okay, I'm getting up now, trying to go make coffee, and we're gonna go handle this real quick. I had another opportunity to experience sleep paralysis. And when I say that, I'm usually the type of person that it's hard to pull tricks on me in my dreams because I'm really aware. You know, it's not just one of those things where as soon as you're aware, you wake up. No, you're aware and you stay there, and then all of a sudden you try and figure out what you can figure out, right? So same kind of concept. I was tattooing a person, and I ended up going to bed. I actually fell asleep on the couch that night. And I remember sleeping, and I was looking down at my chest, and I saw this head of a woman laying there. Once again, what the hell is going on here? I don't know who this woman is that I'm looking at right now. But as I'm going like this, I feel myself like I can't move my body. But I feel like I have a different view where I can kind of like circle and kind of come around and look, and I see this woman look at me, and she went from like being beautiful, she was beautiful, and all of a sudden the other side of her face was like kind of hairy and kind of just like looked a little different. I just knew there was something off about this right away, right? All of a sudden something inside of me goes, ha, watch this. And all of a sudden I felt my arms go out like this, and my body just went, and made this harmonic, and I dropped in my body, and I saw this burst of light, and that thing wasn't even there no more. How are you gonna go to sleep again after something like that happens? It was like 4 a.m, and I was up resting there, just, you know? So the reason why I tell you that story is because I know sleep paralysis affects some people. And if you have the awareness when you're experiencing that, it'll pull you right out of it every single time, okay? So talked about them. Sometimes people talk about shadow people. Shadow people and humans are very different. I think it's shadow person is a very gray term for stuff, right? The difference between like a jinn, that's a shadow, and a person, that's a shadow. People will call them shadow people all the time. It's the same thing to them, but they move very differently and they look very differently. A human, let's say someone that passed away and they were, I don't know, like cancer or old age or whatever. And one of the things that they like to do the most is they pump them full of morphine or something that just kind of helps make that easier for them, remove that pain, make things transition easier, right? Well, more times than not, that leaves them in a very just kind of like a sleepy state, almost like sleepwalking, right? And if we have the ability to see that, we see the head and the shoulders, and it's just black. It's just kind of a head and shoulders, and it just kind of moves like this. If you are dealing with a jinn, they're very different. Sometimes extremely tall. Sometimes I've heard them be like 8, 9, 10 feet tall, and people see them in their house, right? Sometimes it's a cloud that's off the floor. They are a shapeshifter. Sometimes you could see, you guys ever heard about someone seeing a shadow cat or a shadow dog in the house? I'm gonna tell you right now, that ain't Mittens. That's not Fido, that ain't Mittens. If your animal passes away and it wants to let you know that it's there, it's gonna do something similar like it did before. Favorite spot on the couch to jump up on, you feel something jump up on the couch right there. Maybe it had a bell that you hear ding, but more times than not, it's gonna do stuff to let you know that it's there. And it was the same kind of stuff that it always did, unless it was like creepy and just darted between rooms in the hallway or something. Like that's like usually what you see is the stuff happening. So just understand that it's all connected. With kids, you'll see they'll get imaginary friends, right? Oh, well, Timmy's here now and he says this and that. Well, most of the time, anytime I'm dealing with someone that's trying to connect with a kid, there's someone else in the house that's dealing with seeing something completely different. And they think they're two separate things and they're really the same thing. They're just getting connection one way or the other. And most of the time, it's not meant to hurt us. It can hurt us, but it's meant to get our attention. How many people do you know that actively seek these kind of beings and try and help cross them over? I don't really know very many people that do this stuff. So at the end of the day, believe me when I tell you, there's plenty of practice out there. Lots of practice to be taken care of, okay? So I'm telling you guys all of this because I want you guys to understand that we ourselves in the position that we are can do something about all of this. You have a physical body, which means you have a very strong electromagnetic field. You have a spark of the creator. That means you are a creator. You have creative energies and abilities that are endowed to you. This is your birthright, plain and simple. We have an intellect about us that allows us to decipher right and wrong. And if we align all that stuff, we can move lots of mountains, we can help, we can do all sorts of things, okay? So before we get into the protocol, what's our time looking like right now?
We're at 43 minutes.
Perfect. So before we get into the protocol, was there anything you guys wanted me to talk about, touch on a little bit more, clarify anything? Yeah, go ahead.
What's your take on like soul ties, like breaking soul ties with like people, you know what I mean?
Understood. So she's asking, what do I think about soul ties and that kind of stuff or whatever. So soul level stuff is big. So we'll talk about this real quick. Give me 1 second. When I do my work, the breath work that I do with this stuff, I tell people about this, not saying it's going to happen to them, but this is kind of like what I've learned to work with it, right? So when I want to connect and I want to reach out to something, someone can send me a message. Before I'd say, send me a picture. Now I just ask to go to wherever I need to see. You know what I mean? And from there, if I can travel there and see what's going on, believe me when I tell you, they can also come back with me. And I do that willingly because I want to be able to help them, right? So soul ties, the reason why this is happening, when I do this, I am doing what's called soul healing. This bypasses all your guides. This bypasses any kind of forms of protection because it is the will to connect on a soul level. You bypass all of it. So soul connections, like soulmates and like twin flames and stuff, man, how do you identify a twin flame? If you haven't loved them and wanted to kill them at least a few times, like that is definitely instance of a twin flame. Everybody thinks that it's just going to be this serendipitous relationship, that you're going to find someone that's the hot to your cold, and that's really not it at all. You're going to find a person that says you're stuck in your ways and you're hindering yourself and you need to knock the hell off because you're not moving forward. That's soul connection. They are meant to come into your life as a challenge. Some are there for help, absolutely. You know, or sometimes you just have that where you meet someone for the first time and you're like, man, I feel like I've known this person forever. We seem to click, right? That's also soul connection too, very much so. So you ever heard the term, your vibe will attract your tribe? That's soul connections. Put your intent and your will out to the universe of what you want to see done in your life. But don't be afraid when that universe conspires to see those things happen in your life, to move these people out of your way, where all of a sudden these new people are coming in and these people are out, and you know what I mean? Soul connections, when we start looking at that, we start finding all the things about us that we didn't even know was a part of us. You know, do you know about like Akashic records? You ever heard about the Akashic or Akashic records or anything like that? This is something it's another concept, the same kind of thing, where anything that's ever happened with anybody is stored in a part of memory, we'll just say. And certain people have the ability to say, hey, I'm gonna access your Akashic record, and they're gonna tell you about your past life and stuff. And they're gonna tell you about some of the tendencies that you've had through these lives and possibly what you need to correct this time around. You know what I mean? So yeah, soul connections are a big thing, but I think what you'll find is when you choose to dive into it, it'll be painful, it'll hurt, and you'll come out of it like a shiny butterfly. You'll get through it. It'll hurt, but you'll get through it. Any other questions, you guys? Yeah, go ahead.
So with the poltergeist energy, can that be a smell?
Claircognizance, I think is what they call that. That's one of the clairs. That's an ability. So yeah, let's say that's a really good question. She asked, can a poltergeist or some sort of entity have a smell to it? 100%. 100%. I get it all the time where people's grandparents or somebody come around and you can smell the perfume. Oh man, what does it smell like? For me, I got a great grandma. When she first came around, I'd smell roses. I guess her name was Rosemary as well. But roses is what used to come off. I've had it where people have like died in a house fire, and I can smell like, it smells like campfire. You know what I mean? Like if I look at people, I can taste what alcohol they like drinking. I can, a lot of different things you can do. Even probably taste the flavor of cigarettes that they like, or sometimes what drugs they're taking. Like it's really endless when it comes down to it. Not everyone's really interested in that, but the reason why I look into stuff that way is because it helps me understand. So when we were talking earlier about keeping the pond still and not throwing rocks in it, this is how we help develop this stuff. And there's 2 pillars that are going to be monumental to everything. You can get lost in crystals, chakras, consciousness, healing, so much stuff to get lost into. Gratitude and breathing. 2 huge pillars in anything. Before you can build a good building or a nice strong building, you gotta have a strong foundation, right? For me, I kind of came, when I started turning around with this kind of stuff, I was in my 20s and still was, in a little bit of substances and was drinking a lot and just kind of was dealing with all that, trying to change into this new person, trying to bring this new person into existence, right? I don't know what it was, but something about waking up every morning, making a cup of coffee before anyone else was awake in the home, everyone's still sleeping, and I go outside and it's freezing. I go outside with my coffee and it's all hot and I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, for some reason, like that was something I was grateful for every day. And I would say, you know what, thank you. Thank you for this ability to have this cup of coffee right now. Thank you for the cold air filling my lungs. Oh, look at that sunshine coming up. Thank you for the sun hitting me in the face today. I appreciate this moment. Thank you. That's where I started. I started doing that, and then I started relaxing and breathing. So if you're trying to amplify this stuff, doing the breath work, I've showed you guys before, we're gonna do again, this breath work increases that, and increases your ability to fine tune that stuff. Then sometimes you can feel textures. Sometimes I'll be talking about someone's animal, I'm like, oh, the little curly haired dog, and they're like, oh, I don't know, I felt the curls, I don't know, you know what I mean? Or just these other kinds of things. There's like the vision, the taste, the smell, the feel, just that inner knowing. It's all connected. So if you get one, you're gonna get all of them. If you have limitations where you're like, oh, I want to see but I don't want to feel, or I want to feel but I don't want to see, they all are like connected in my experience. So it is absolutely a thing to smell stuff when they come around. You're absolutely right. Anything else? Cool. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So, pendulum that I'm gonna use today, this is something I created, it's my design. I call this the Anubis pendulum. Anubis, a lot of people know as ancient Egypt. He was kind of like the psychopomp, or the person that would help spirits get to the underworld and that kind of stuff. And so what I found, which is different, I have another model that's similar to this, but this one seems to have an edge when it comes to doing larger scale clearings with multiple things. So this is what we're gonna use today, okay? So first thing we wanna do is anytime I approach this, and this is gonna probably take about 10 minutes, so hopefully you guys bear with me on this, okay? Because I wanna show you there's gonna be a couple layers to this. And I already know we're gonna get there, but I want you to know that right now, we're gonna be dealing with clearing humans, we're gonna be dealing with clearing non-humans, and any other combination that comes to us right now. And in fact, I'm gonna ask them all to come in right now so we can do the work, okay? So if any of you guys have anything at home that's making sounds or anything, and you're kind of interested in dealing with that, I offer you this. I would like to bring them to me. Let me do the work. Let me guide you guys, and I just need you guys to follow along and do the breath work with me. If you guys can do that, we'll be golden. I want to offer that to you guys because these are the types of things that can really cause confusion in our lives. You get someone that passed away on medication, and they constantly are around you. They can make you just have a hard time processing, thinking clearly. If you're like me, you'll walk into a room and go, "What did I come in here for?" It's kind of that's pretty typical for me. So we're gonna work on that right now. So even if you had an event where you were younger and you saw something, I want you to think about that event, and I want you to invite it here with me. Don't worry about it going home with you, because it won't. I'm gonna have it stay with me, and it's not gonna be by force. It'll be because my willingness, I want to connect with them, okay? So just understand, if you want to do this, this is the approach. Don't do it with force. It's not the way to do it. I can do a lot of stuff when it comes down to being a coach, right? I can ream into parents, I can ream into kids, I can do this. I physically can do this. But do you think that's what makes me strong? The ability to see them for what they are, and really, what are they here to teach me? This approach compassion, and love is the angle that we need for this work, okay? So at this time, what we're gonna go ahead and do is get started, okay? And I'm gonna ask, go ahead and, universal knowledge, let's talk about within 100 miles of this area. Let's just say 100 miles from all timelines, all levels and dimensions. We ask to bring forth anyone needing assistance in going to the light. Anybody else feel that in the back of their neck? Okay, that feels like someone that got hung. So you're gonna get these sensations sometimes when they come up, and fine tuning it and feeling it is what I'm all about, okay? So now that we got their attention, we're good. I'm gonna say, universal knowledge, do I have permission at this time to connect to the higher self of every human entity here with us? And as you can see, it's spinning this way, so that means it's a yes for me. I don't know if you guys can see pendulum spinning, but for me, that's a yes. I say, okay, thank you. Clear. Universal knowledge at this time, do we have that connection? Okay, thoughts go where intention goes. I ask for that connection, we now have that connection. And I'm gonna say, okay, universal knowledge, I ask that we remove all pain and cure all astral lesions in all earthbound human entities with us from the beginning of time to the present moment. And even if you guys forget the words, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you, just do the breathing, it'll work just the same. Okay, and this is for the people at home too, watching online. Here's a big one. Universal knowledge, I ask you to polarize all negative mental stimuli, neutralize all toxic emotional trauma, stored in the bank of memory and energy field of all earthbound human entities here with me from the beginning of time to the present moment. Anybody else feeling warm yet? We're moving stuff right now, okay? Last but not least, universal knowledge. I ask you to send unconditional love energy to the Christ spark of all earthbound human spirits here with us. Allow it to make them feel full, content, and complete once again. Okay, so this is first step in a very large clearing. So we're gonna move on to the next step. And that is, can you guys hear me? Are we feeling a little bit better? Yes. Once again, I'm directing the conversation. Thank you. Can you tell me, is there anybody else here with you that's angry or upset that I'm talking to you? Yes. So it is important that we now bring it to the next layer to get what needs to be cleared out of the way. Typically, I don't see this go past 2 very often. There's been a few times I've made it to 3, but typically second layer is where I usually find a lot of stuff. And I say, okay, universal knowledge, I ask that we bring forward these hidden entities, and that's how we connect with them and heal them. Bring them forward. All right, universal knowledge. Are we in the presence of any of our non-human entity jinn brothers? Like I said, I always call him my brother. That's what I call him. So you don't have to call him that, but that's what I call him. Just let him know that I'm here to help him. I'm not here to harm him. And I say, okay, so we are definitely in the presence of him. Okay, and we definitely have more than one here. Oh yeah, we got more than one here. I don't need to know the number. That's, I guess, if you want to find it out, but I'm just going to get straight to the point. Okay. And I'm going to ask, okay, universal knowledge at this time, do I have permission to make a mental connection with all of our jinn brothers from the beginning of time to the present moment that are here with us? Yes. Can we send them healing energy? Yes. All right. Universal knowledge, I ask to make that connection at this time. And you'll notice my, what do you call it? My protocols are very similar, but there's a little difference at the very end. I'm going to show you guys this. So what I'm going to say is universal knowledge at this time. I ask you to polarize, or we remove all pain and cure all astral lesions in all of our jinn brothers from the beginning of time to the present moment. Now, some of these have been here because they got pulled through with different kinds of seances or different forms of witchcraft. Some of them probably having some kind of curses or hexes that are on them right now. So when I say depolarize all negative mental stimuli and neutralize toxic emotional trauma, it covers this whole area. So sometimes people say that you have curses from other lifetimes, and they kind of go off on that tangent. Depolarize negative mental stimuli. neutralize toxic emotional trauma. It seems to cover all this. So we're going to ask that we depolarize all negative mental stimuli and neutralize all toxic emotional trauma stored in the bank of memory and energy field of all of our Jinn brothers here from the beginning of time to the present moment. Okay. Universal knowledge, I ask that we send nourishing, unconditional love energy to our Jinn brothers, not to the Christ spark, because they don't have one there. We ask that we send nourishing, unconditional love energy to our Jinn brothers, allow them to feel full, content, complete once again. All right, so let's see if this has to go any further. Universal knowledge. Actually, let's try this. My friend, can you hear me? Thank you, I get a yes. Is there anybody else there with you, angry, upset that I'm talking to you? No. So we have got to the root of it. We have got to the root of what we need to get to. And I'm going to say, okay, are you guys wanting to join your family back in your home dimension? Okay, I get a yes because they have a family. They do have a family. They have a hierarchy. We haven't talked a whole lot about them in that regard, but they absolutely do. And I'm going to say, okay, I can help you get there. But first, can you take a look around the room and tell me, do you see a being of light here with us? Okay, I'm getting a big yes. And I'm going to say, okay, I know who this is, but I'm just going to say, this is a being of light that is here to assist us at this time and to help guide you home. You can trust him as you trusted me. Is he speaking to you now? I get a big yes. And I say, okay, is he asking you to go with him? Yes. Most important question. Will you go with him? Yes. I'm not forcing him to do nothing. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything. I've aligned with their will, directed the conversation, and now are in a position to help get this and all of them back to where they need to go. And I'm going to say, okay, thank you. It's been an honor to serve you, brother. Universal knowledge, I ask that we surround, protect, heal, and keep all of our Jinn brothers in the light. We ask now to remove them from this space and from all timelines, future, past, present, and parallel, known and unknown, and from the energy field of anybody here with us at this time. And we ask to merge them back with their home dimension, divinely, instantly, and painlessly. Let peace and tranquility follow you for all eternity. Nice. Anybody else feel looser in the neck now? Anybody else feel looser? Oh yeah, good stuff. So we have just cleared all of our non-human entities. Now we have to finish the task by clearing the people that are left over. Universal knowledge, do we have permission to connect with the higher self of all earthbound humans here? Yes. Okay, we do that now. All right, can you guys hear me? Get a big yes. Thank you. Are you guys wanting to join your family and friends in the light? Thank you. Here's a very important question. Is anybody here afraid to go to the light? They're all willing to go. All right, well, I can help you get there. Can you do me a favor? Can you look down in the middle of your chest and tell me, do you see a light here? I get a big yes. Okay, well, I ask that you look into this light, gaze into this light, and take a deep breath in with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, universal knowledge. Have we successfully cleared all earthbound entities here? Thank you. Is this place clear? Thank you. Are the houses clear of everyone here in attendance? Thank you. Are the houses clear of everyone watching on video? Thank you. So, it feels a lot like you're making stuff up. It really does. It feels a lot like that. Then you start seeing how it responds in people's houses, how it responds in people's businesses, how it responds in the overall health of people, mentally and physically. when these little miracles start happening, these little flickers of light that come to us, this is all we need moving forward. So whether or not this is even something you're interested in, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope that you guys got a chance to see into something that I have put a lot of time and effort into. In fact, this breathing technique, I wrote 2 books. This breathing technique, I figured out when my second book was publishing, and I almost didn't even release it because I felt like that information was outdated. But I was told to produce it anyways because there needs to be stepping scales to get to this point, okay? So, it's been incredible being with you guys. I've been really enjoying talking about this stuff. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. At this time, I'd like to open it up to any questions anybody has about anything. Anything, talk to me about anything. I'd love it. Go ahead.
Does that work with PTSD?
Oh,
Or
so,
like military stuff?
so PTSD, we can talk about that. PTSD refers to the disassociation of consciousness. Sometimes we get it from like childhood trauma or even, that kind of stuff, going to war and, everything that goes with that. What happens, uncomfortable events get pretty much, you ever heard of that? Oh, something bad happened, I just kind of put it in the back of my mind, I don't think about it anymore, right?
Stuff it down.
Yeah, stuff it away, whatever. Sometimes it even happens in like car accidents too, right? Well, what happens is, let's say that this part of our consciousness vibrates a certain way. Maybe it's fear, maybe it's anger, frustration, maybe a little bit of all of it, right? What we can do, there is a therapeutic approach, and I have a bunch of pendulums up here, and one of them, which of course isn't up on display right now, it's a violet spectrum pendulum that I call the Sekhmet, and this one is extremely good for this kind of work. What we want to do is we basically want to find this part of consciousness that is disassociated, that is lingering in the person's energy field. And we want to depolarize the negative mental stimuli. We want to neutralize that toxic emotional trauma that's stored in there, right? And so from there, what I do after it's been, what I would say, decustomized, I merge it back with the block of consciousness, and I kind of like visualize like myself like taking that last piece of the puzzle and like putting it together. Like that's kind of like the image that I use with it. The reason why we want to do that is because if we have something lingering that's going like this, it's going to lag our system. You guys can go buy a brand new computer right now, state of the art. Open up 40 windows on that computer. Keep it on for 2 weeks. How good do you think that system is going to lag? How good do you think it's going to run? It's going to freeze. It's going to be a pain, right? Or is that just me? So what we're doing, PTSD, we're going around closing all of those open windows to bring back balance and just a lot better to concentrate and just kind of feel a lot more balance in life. Like that's what PTSD would fall into. One of the things people I haven't talked about this much. This is more in my second book. This is a whole nother flavor to this stuff. When you start talking about schizophrenia and you start talking about people that actually like legit hear voices and stuff, right? Disassociated consciousness, they can attach to it. Not only that, they can also fill the void. So like if you think of consciousness as something that's constantly flowing, right? Picture yourself on a highway, right? Highway, all the cars are flowing in the same direction. Well, one car might deter off and take an exit, and then one car might move over or merge. Moral of the story, it always fills. It always fills and doesn't stay vacant. It always fills, and so sometimes there's things that do attach to us. One of the things that's a big culprit of this is when we take drugs or alcohol to the point of blackout. Because when that happens, your light wall drops. And then that's when other things can come on board, like especially if you're like sleeping with people and drinking that much or doing that kind of stuff and blacking out and you're still having relations with people. That's how you start kind of like taking from each other. So I definitely recommend, people are people, you do what you want, but definitely try and sleep with only the people that you admire and want to be like. That's the big, the only thing I can recommend for that. Because if not, we definitely share our energies and stuff, and that's, trauma can definitely be one of those things. I'll tell you a little story about trauma though. One of the pendulums I use is this green one right here. I call it the Furba. The cool thing about this is that I can attach an intention or a command that can transcend time with it. I can send it to the past and have it affect the present and the future. What the hell does that mean? What I've been able to do with this, I had someone reach out to me and they said, hey, I had this kid, and it's like a 2-year-old girl. She had like sensory issues, right? She wouldn't go outside. She would close her eyes, cover her ears. Also hated the feeling of being wet. Bath time was a no-go. It was all not good. So she said, can you do anything about it? I said, I don't know. Let me see what I can do. So I decided to grab that pendulum and I had an idea. And that idea was, okay, let's talk about this child for a second, okay? Can I go to the point of conception when that egg and sperm hit and started creating that physical component to this person? Can we go to that moment? Cool. So I went right to that moment. Now I knew that the parents were connected. I went into both of them. I started working on the emotional trauma, the PTSD, some of the other stuff lagging in their system, closed all of it up, balanced it, closed all of it up, balanced it, brought it to the child. Said a prayer on the child, witness it being formed perfectly in the womb, witness complete, total, perfect formation all the way through pregnancy. From there, I asked to bless every single person in the medical staff, all the doctors, the nurses, the grandparents, the aunts, everyone that was involved in the process, I asked to bless all of them, okay? From there, I asked to bring that healing to the present moment with this child, with my breath work, kind of like what we just did. I checked in with her about 2 weeks later, and now the little girl likes going to the store. She goes outside and plays with her brothers, and ironically, bath time is one of her favorite times now. So sensory issues is something we can absolutely do a lot of stuff with. And there's a lot of things that can do it. Sometimes it's diet, sometimes it's like, you know, vaccinations, or there's a lot of other things. But the good news is we can do something about it. And if we can't totally change something, maybe it's not meant to be changed. You guys ever seen people that are born into like deformed bodies, or people that are like, you know, like mentally challenged and stuff, right? People that look like they need assistance for their whole life, right? You guys heard about Dolores Cannon and stuff, right? I think she has a really neat perspective on this, and she's like a past life hypnotherapist. She has some great books that are out there. But she talked about why those come to be. When you talk about, you asked about soul contracts earlier, right? There's certain things that we have to do in order to get to the next level, okay? We see it in school. You graduate 3rd grade, you go to 4th grade. Graduate high school, you go to college, okay? All has levels to it. Our soul's progression, same kind of concept. We have levels and things that we have to achieve and go through it, these contracts. Okay, so when this happens, let's say your whole class is moving forward, but you got that one kid that got held back 2, 3, 4 years, right? You got held back. How does that kid that got held back make it to the rest of the classmates? Incarnate into a, you know, deformed body, or some kind of concept like that, I guess you could say. I want to be sensitive to that, you know, but I just want to know that when I see this kind of stuff, people always tell you those are gods like secret angels or whatever. I look at them as a very, very brave soul. You know what I mean? And so people that take care of them, man, they are doing the work of the angels, because really these people are going to live this life and catch up to the rest of the people that are in their class. So that's it. It's a different concept, but that's something talked about by Dolores Cannon. That always just kind of resonated with me. And so when I see someone that's special, I really think, man, you're really special. You know what I mean? They definitely signed up to take on a big task and do some makeup work in the process. So, and on top of it, they usually seem to bring lots of love and joy in people's lives. So it's kind of a cool spin-off of being around them. Right? If only we could see through the eyes of a child all the time, right? They're always wondrous and they love everything. And it's, whoa, look at that cloud, look at that balloon. Man, I wish I could just see everything that exciting all the time. That'd be great. You know what I mean? So, any other questions? Is there anything online? No questions online? Well, if you guys have anything, you guys can always message me. Definitely look me up. I'm on Pendulum Optometrics. I'm on TikTok now, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can email me, nick@salzman@gmail.com. I'll put all those links after this gets posted that are on there, so anyone can contact me. And if you're seeing this video now and you're going, dang, I missed it, reach out to me, comment on here, and I will gladly reach out and help you. I don't have to know you or know where you're at or any of that kind of stuff, and I promise I can give you some assistance. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here, you guys. I really appreciate you allowing me to share my passion with you, and I hope you guys have learned something new and, you know, walk out of here with a little bit of courage and confidence and know that it doesn't matter what comes your way, you have the ability to help it. And in my experience, seeking out the darkness, I've never been given anything that I couldn't handle. So believe that, follow up with your guides if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But more importantly, express your gratitude and love the people around you. And that's the best advice that I can give you. The rest will make itself known, because if we can only experience what happened yesterday and tomorrow in the present moment, then that means if I'm aware and I love you and I'm conscious of the moment, then I can affect my past and I can certainly affect my future. So, love you all. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. I'm not sure how to turn this up.